Hey, I'm Isabella, and today I'm reacting to my Oxford essay that got me into the Human Sciences program. I wrote this essay months ago, and I haven't really looked back, but what I remember is this experience was incredible. I really got to develop my voice in writing. I got to work backwards from a very clearly defined purpose of an essay, which was to define how I'm an ideal candidate for the specific program. And I went through tens and tens of drafts to get the final one, which I eventually submitted. So I'm excited to react. I'm also going to be analyzing the essay as I go through and read it. So without further ado, I have my essay right here, which is where I'll be looking down. If 4 transatlantic planes crashed, murdering all passengers today, we would demand an investigation. If this investigation uncovered that the cause of the crash was entirely preventable, we would be outraged. However, if this kept happening daily, we would adapt to accept this reality. Several global problems are preventable realities, yet it is easier to ignore them than face their complicated causes. Human Sciences will provide me with the foundation to analyze these causes through its interdisciplinary course. Awesome. So I want to start here with this end point, which is introducing the purpose of this essay, bringing it back to what the reader actually cares about, which is the course, the program, etc. And that is the Human Sciences course. It's this foundation to analyze the world through an interdisciplinary lens from math and science and humanities, etc. This is important because that's how I start and how I close the essay at the very bottom here. My desire to expand my worldview motivates studying in the UK as a Canadian international student with an education. With an education in human sciences, I aspire to redefine reality. Now, this is a sandwich that I very intentionally made where I wanted to sort of carve the essay and put all the bulk of the evidence behind why this degree between the purpose, which is I want to study this degree to explore the world through lots of different angles, to fix the world, to, here I say, redefine reality. Now, I want to circle this redefine reality because this is the image that I'm trying to create in this first paragraph. You can see the word reality repeated again. But here I talk about, murdering, these really awful causes that are totally preventable, and I'm going to circle preventable as well because that's going to come up again. I talk about the reality and how it's not ideal. The world is not in ideal shape, and that's how I want to use the degree. Now here I'm using a lot of imagery. I'm using a very vivid example. We would know if there was 4 planes crashing every single day, or in one day, there would be a massive investigation. And if the cause was preventable, here I have it again, we would be incredibly outraged. We would demand change, etc. And if this kept happening daily, we would adapt to accept this reality. And now here, I kind of use the word interdisciplinary a lot to describe the degree. And I'm also talking about several global problems and several complicated causes. So it's kind of this idea of like many things, many angles, many root causes. We have to use a very broad lens to view the world because it's just so complicated. Now I'm going to move on to the next part, and I'll definitely come back to aspects if they're relevant. While developing a 100-page research thesis on female biology, I discovered the issue of maternal mortality. Every day, the number of women dying in childbirth is equivalent to everyone on board 4 transatlantic planes dying. I learned that girls my age are giving birth on dirt grounds, and after delivery, many will lose cups worth of blood. I'll pause here. As you can see, I brought back this image of the 4 transatlantic planes. And I'm also here talking about some evidence. I'm talking about something I did, developing a 100-page research thesis on female biology. That becomes really important because it shows that, I can have these thoughts about planes crashing and metaphors, but I did something in this sphere. And then I sort of talk about how I discovered this issue I became really passionate about. Every day, the number of women dying in childbirth is equivalent to this image I mentioned. And then I sort of give a little bit more context on what is actually happening. Girls giving birth on dirt grounds. I'm using imagery again. Many will lose cups worth of blood. This blood idea becomes really relevant because of the next thing I'll talk about. So let's move on. Culturally, others may convince them that their blood loss is natural and that a strong woman does not need help during childbirth. With a lack of medical action, many will bleed to death. Uncovering this shocking reality inspired me to put together a team developing an intervention to reduce postpartum hemorrhaging in Nigeria. Here, I'm going to highlight this part in red as well because that's another example of proof I have in this essay. We're currently launching a pilot with 10,000 women in partnership with the Ministry of Health and FAYOHI, a Nigerian nonprofit organization. Through this project, I realized maternal mortality in the developing world is more than just a medical issue. It's culturally complex, and we need an understanding of its root causes to solve it effectively. That brings me back to this idea of multiple complexity, the interdisciplinary lens. Now I want to go into this essay part a bit. I'm talking, relating it back to this plane, which kind of just implies that this is also a preventable issue. I'm talking about the issue from lots of different angles. Here I use the word culturally, that the blood loss is natural. I use strong women, sort of implying cultural. With a lack of medical action, that's a medical word. Many will bleed to death. Currently launching the pilot. And then this is sort of where I have this realization that this problem, the singular problem of maternal mortality, is very complex, but it's also more than just a medical issue, which is sort of what your brain or anyone's brain might come to when you hear the word mortality in the sentence. But there's so much more to that. Now, moving on, let's do this third paragraph. While there is a medical treatment for postpartum hemorrhaging, developing countries often lack access to it. So I began consulting with over 100 maternal health experts to figure out why. Here's more proof. Surprisingly, it was not entirely economical nor medically influenced because culture and society played a huge role. That theme of there's more to problems than just their service, what might come first to your mind. By understanding how these socio-cultural factors such as religion, illiteracy, and poverty contributed to maternal mortality, I gained a holistic interpretation of the issue and began designing an intervention. Now I want to highlight here the holistic interpretation. I'm using a lot of the lingo that the courses use, the websites, like socio-cultural, religion, poverty, illiteracy, medical treatment, culture, etc. I think I said culture twice, whatever. And I'm sort of adding that here, and that's it's like unconsciously or indirectly talking about all of the aspects of the program, the aspects of the degree, showing that I've thought like this, my brain works like this, I'm the right fit. And here I want to highlight illiteracy, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned it later in the essay, and I think it's a pretty good image I build, so let's actually highlight it in a different color. Okay. As the project manager, I led the team to develop a medical training program and distribution scheme for the drug misoprostol, in brackets, which reduces hemorrhages by 85 to 90%. That's more proof, so we have a medical training program and a distribution scheme. My prior research in female biology, as well as scoring in the top 1% of my classes and earning distinction awards in biology, enriched sciences, and maths, provided me with the background to understand the biochemistry of misoprostol for a medical training. Okay, so here I'm talking about my more STEM-oriented stuff. So I have STEM, I'm talking about the medical aspect of this intervention for the medical training. And then I move on saying, analyzing over 20 research reports. This is a really good point to bring up because a lot of these programs in the UK are very academic oriented. They're very what are the research papers you've read? They're very conventional in the academic sense. So I think it's really important from what I've learned from the people I talked to, the YouTube videos I watch, it was really important to mention that. But instead of saying, I read this paper, and that paper, I chose to focus on one, a PhD thesis on misoprostol distribution. I really just tried to talk about that one paper in an intelligent way, mentioning that I've read many others, but talking about that one to show that I can critically think about it. So that's what I'll talk about next, including Karen Hobday's PhD thesis on misoprostol distribution to help to form the distribution methodology. To measure the pilot's effectiveness, so now we're talking about something different. We're talking about measurements and more math related. So to measure the pilot's effectiveness, I'm developing a data collection system to gather quantitative metrics for the Nigerian National Health Information System. In general, my role throughout the project has been to assess our program from multiple angles, that's bringing back this interdisciplinary theme, and suggest iterations. For example, I suggested creating a pictorial training curriculum to accommodate low literacy rates. In this process, I connected with over 30 doctors, 20 community specialists, and 5 lawyers. Great, so I did mention that I would bring illiteracy back. I like to, sort of go back to ideas that I've mentioned just to make the essay connected, because I mentioned low literacy rates in the last paragraph, and it just shows that, I can say that I understand the socio-cultural factors in one sentence, but in a better spot, in a spot that sort of flows better, I talk about how I actually use that to change something, this sort of pictorial way of training people to accommodate a issue, a barrier. And that's another way of implying that this issue is more than just, the access to this drug that I'm talking about. Okay. Building a robust solution to maternal mortality would be incomplete without perspectives in anthropology, sociology, biology, psychology, and quantitative measurement. So incomplete, we need a robust solution, using a lot of these words, and these subjects I actually got from the first year syllabus of at Oxford. So that's how these came to be. So it's again like another reference to the course directly or indirectly without saying human sciences at this university. A multifaceted understanding of humans is not only beneficial for reducing maternal mortality, but fundamental to solving all global challenges. Okay, this kind of connects back to my introduction paragraph. It's not only beneficial for reducing, but fundamental to solve all global challenges. Because here I'm talking about several global problems. I'm talking about how a lot of them are preventable realities, how all of them, or many of them, have this image that I've sort of detailed here with the passengers dying in a plane and us needing to investigate until it just becomes too frequent for us to really put our attention towards it. Therefore, to spend my life executing more ambitious projects helping others, I need a strong breadth in what it means to be human. Let's do that in blue, actually. My desire to expand my worldview motivates studying in the UK as a Canadian international student. Now, I want to talk about this expansion. It's sort of like a subtle analogy because I could have used any like disaster. I could have used a tsunami, a building crashing. But I think the plane is almost like an example of like traveling, going far, expanding worldview. I'm not sure if that was like totally evident when someone was reading it, but maybe it's like an unconscious thing. It's like the expansion of world view. Like I really could have put as many analogies in here as I wanted, but I think because that one almost has like a double meaning here with this expanding of worldview, I thought it was the most interesting. I think what I could have done a little bit better in this essay, I wish I mentioned the plane image more than twice because I really only mentioned it twice. I could have reiterated it here in the end. I think maybe I could have focused this section because I kind of have a big list of things. Like I have my prior research in I talk about my class ranking and status. I talk about like the biochemistry of misoprostol. That's one aspect of the program. I talk about distribution. That's the second aspect. I talk about data collection. That's the third aspect. I talk about the pictorial curriculum. That's the fourth aspect. I maybe could have focused on 3 or 2 and then maybe detailed a little bit more like what is the distribution methodology or like what's included in the medical curriculum and what does it mean? Like what does that system do? Like I know I could answer that, but I think a big point of the personal statement is not to only focus in on one aspect or like one project, but it's to show all the ways you are related to this degree. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and interesting. If it was, please like this video and let me know what you think. And I will see you hopefully in another video soon.